Key inventions and innovations.
In 1764, James Hargreaves built what became known as the spinning jenny. The machine used 8 spindles onto which the thread was spun from a corresponding set of rovings. By turning a single wheel, the operator could now spin 8 threads at once. Later improvements were made that allowed the number to be increased to 80. The thread that the machine produced was coarse and lacked strength, making it only suitable for filling of weft, the threads woven across the warp. Water frame. In textile manufacture, a spinning machine powered by water that produced a cotton yarn suitable for warp. Patented in 1769 by R. Arkwright, it represented an improvement on James Hargreaves' spinning jenny, which produced weaker thread suitable only for weft. Steam engines. In 1698, Thomas Savery, an engineer and inventor, patented the steam engine. Savery used principles set forth by Denis Papin, a French-born British physicist who invented the steam engine. A steam engine is a heat engine that performs mechanical work using steam as its working fluid. The steam engine uses the force produced by steam pressure to push a piston back and forth inside a cylinder. The pushing force is transformed by a connecting rod and flywheel into rotational force for work. Steam locomotives and the development of railways. A steam locomotive is a type of railway locomotive that produces its pulling power through a steam engine. These locomotives are fueled by burning combustible material, usually coal, wood, or oil, to produce steam in a boiler. Richard Trevithick built the first steam locomotive in 1802, but the person who invented it was George Stephenson. Steamships. A steamship, often referred to as a steamer, is a type of steam-powered vessel, usually ocean-faring and seaworthy. It is propelled by one or more steam engines that move propellers or paddle wheels. The first steamships came into practical use during the early 1800s. However, there were exceptions that came before. The first successful steamship was invented by Claude de Jouffroy in France in 1774. Electricity. In the year 1660, Otto von Guericke invented an electrostatic generator that generates static electricity. But the person who discovered electricity was Benjamin Franklin, and Italian physicist Alessandro Volta discovered that particular chemical reactions could produce electricity. Electricity was used for generators that were installed inside of buildings and homes. Soon after, electrical stations in major cities began to spring up. This impacted society greatly, as now they had new ways to get light, cook, and do other daily activities. Telegram. Developed in the 1830s and 1840s by Samuel Morse and other inventors. The telegraph revolutionized long-distance communication. It worked by transmitting electrical signals over a wire laid between stations. Samuel Morse also invented a set of dots and dashes useful for encoding electromagnetic messages, making it possible to send telegrams without needing 26 separate wires. This was called Morse code. Telephone. Antonio Musi is the inventor of the first telephone. However, Alexander Graham Bell was the first to patent it. A telephone is a telecommunication device that permits 2 or more users to conduct a conversation when they are too far apart to be heard directly. This revolutionized the way people communicated with each other, and it made keeping in contact with faraway relatives easier. Working conditions including child labor. Child labor, or the use of children as servants and apprentices, have been practiced throughout most of human history, but reached a peak during the Industrial Revolution. Miserable working conditions included crowded and unclean factories, a lack of safety codes or legislation, and long hours were the norm. Crucially, children could be paid less, were less likely to organize into unions, and their small stature enabled them to complete tasks in factory or mines that would be challenging for adults. Working children were unable to attend school, which created a wave of poverty that was difficult to break. Environmental impacts from the Industrial Revolution. Impacts included the global population has significantly increased. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the total population increased by 57%, reaching 700 million. Smog also brought a series of respiratory diseases. Air pollution also caused several illnesses, including pneumonic ones. Furthermore, the massive amount of soot prevented people from maintaining the houses and keeping the streets clean. These dense fogs did not only slowly kill our planet, but they also killed numerous people. In 1873, these killer fogs affected London. Statistics indicate more than 1,550 deaths in 3 days. The use of coal to fuel industries also affected the environment. During the 1850s, people first discovered acid rain. This type of rain was a result of pollution coming from coal-fueled plants. Assessment on whether the Industrial Revolution had a positive or negative impact on society. As an event, the Industrial Revolution had both positive and negative impacts for society. Although there were several positives to the Industrial Revolution, there were also many negative elements. These included poor working conditions, poor living conditions, low wages, child labour, and pollution. There were also a few positives that came out of the Industrial Revolution, such as new machinery and production processes. The inventions of new machinery made production faster and more economical, but there were definitely far more losses than gains throughout the Industrial Revolution. Therefore, I'd say it had a pretty negative impact on society.